Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head here on the game as we will hang out with yous up until 3 o'clock. As I plug in the headsets so I can hear Tyler Head. Alrighty, so here we are, Tyler. I guess we got one more day. We can still look back on Akron, even though, to be honest with you, we got no game to look forward to this Saturday. So we can spend as much time as we want talking about Akron. We can break down every play if we wanted to. As we do take a look back on Akron, we'll give you a little idea of the grades from the game. Obviously, the quarterback was pretty good. Obviously, the running backs, pretty good. Wide receivers, pretty good. Offensive line, well, the quarterback and the wide receivers and the running backs were pretty good. Some guys got some decent grades. We'll get into that. And some guys continue to struggle in some ways, and we'll get to that. So as we hit the bye week, we'll also take a flip on the other side of the ball. Obviously, the defense, for the most part, good across the board against Akron. There's a couple things that were like, okay, that's got to get better. But for the most part, defensively, pretty much suffocated the Zips just like we figured.
Yeah, you didn't struggle with anything necessarily this past weekend. Again, a few things could have been better. Pass protection, things like that. But, I mean, for the most part, you handled your business the way you wanted to. And, of course, the one play that Collier let, get away from him. But other than that, did what you need to do and feel overall pretty good going into the bye.
Yeah, I mean, when you and we'll also be, as this week goes along, looking at this football team after 4 games, 3-1 for the first time since 2017. That's a good thing. Yeah, I know this. The stink of LSU makes it should be 4-0. But if you were sitting in August and we said South Carolina would be 3-1 going into October,
bye,
almost everybody be happy.
Of course.
So, yes, I know. The woulda, coulda, shoulda, yeah, the 4-0, yeah, I get it, but still 3-1 going into this gauntlet. And look, we talk about this coming into the year. The goal here is to get back to a bowl game after last year, right?
Definitely.
So you've won 3, you got 3 left, you got Wofford. Vanderbilt's going to be tougher than you thought when the season started. But the flip side of that is neither Texas A&M, Oklahoma, or Missouri look anywhere near what you thought they would be coming into September. And the way your defense is playing, you should be in football games pretty much the rest of the season. Yeah, obviously Ole Miss and Alabama are going to be because of the high-powered offense they bring. But again, Alabama, South Florida, 3.5 quarters, South Florida had Alabama flipping out. They couldn't get anything accomplished, and that game was really tight.
Yeah, that's my thing. Like, look, South Carolina's not going to be favored going to Alabama. South Carolina's not going to be favored against Ole Miss coming up here in, a week and a half. But as we've seen this year in college football, nothing's out of their own possibility. And if Alabama does not play their best game and Carolina's defense can play the way that we know it can, you got a chance. Not a great chance, but you got a chance.
Well, think about this for a minute, because it's always fun to do this. All right, for an example, Northern Illinois went and beat Notre Dame, correct?
Yes.
Everybody on the Northern Illinois team was crying. It was a beautiful moment. The Fighting Lembos beat Northern Illinois.
Yes.
So Buffalo is better than Notre Dame.
By the transitive property, yes.
No, but my point is, Notre Dame, and just after Notre Dame pretty much strangled Texas A&M.
Right.
On the road.
Right.
So Notre Dame goes on the road and beats A&M. Notre Dame then comes home and gets beat by Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois, I believe, was at home when Buffalo beat them. That's our point of what's going on this year in college football.
Correct.
So could South Carolina beat Ole Miss when Ole Miss shows up? Sure, Ole Miss has played no one. They played a few junior high teams. They played a trucking company, and they played Wake Forest. That's what really all they've done. They haven't been tested. They haven't gone up against a defense like this. And the flip side is South Carolina hasn't faced an offense like this. So your idea is a big matchup. One of the big matchups is going to be, can the South Carolina defense slow down Ole Miss? We don't know. We're going to find out. And again, Alabama, they're at home. I believe they were in Tuscaloosa with that South Florida game this year.
That's correct.
And for 3.5 quarters, that's a 1-score game. just saying. I think that I'm just going to go on a limb here. I think the Gamecock defense is a little bit better than South Florida's.
Well, the South Florida offense wasn't competent enough to capitalize on all the mistakes that Alabama made.
Mm-hmm.
If they were playing a better overall team, they would have lost that game. But South Florida just couldn't capitalize despite the fact that Alabama kept making mistakes.
I watched a good chunk of that game. The kid Brown, the quarterback for South Florida, he can run around like a maniac. Problem is when he goes to throw it, he's got that Joe Milton disease sometimes.
Yep.
And he had some Joe Milton disease in that game against Alabama. But South Florida was in that thing. And then the last, what was it, Tyler? 6-7 minutes, Alabama scored 70 touchdowns. It was really weird.
They just put it on. They made it look better than it should have been.
Yeah. So our point is, the way college football is this year, even in these games coming into the season, you went, no way. There might be ways. But the flip side is also, if you don't bring your A game and you don't play well and you don't clean up some things you need to clean up, could you lose to A&M? Sure. Could you lose to Missouri? Yep. Could you get beat by Oklahoma? Absolutely. Could you lose a game to Alabama? Uh-huh. Could you get beat by Ole Miss? Sure. That's kind of the way this thing goes. But you're in a really good spot at 3-1 if you're South Carolina. You got the win you needed at Kentucky. You should have beat LSU. So you're at 3-1. You feel really good where you're at. Your defense is legit. You have a legit defense. And offensively, we're seeing it get better. You know, we're seeing the wide receivers start to get better. The offensive line, especially the tackles, is continuing to be a question mark. But you're starting to feel a little bit better about the offense. You feel great about your defense. Your special teams are solid. Kai Kroger can outrun a lot of Group of Five special team players. So you're feeling, I would say, you're pretty thumbs up where you're at, with the hope that the offense will continue to grow and your defense will continue to beat up on folks. And maybe you walk out of the season with maybe a little bit more than the 6 or 7 wins you were hoping for.
My only concern is that the defenses you face in the next 2 games and really the next 3 games with Oklahoma as well, though that game seems more winnable, you just hope it doesn't kill the momentum. Like, okay, you've steadily improved on offense through the first 4 weeks of the season, considering the fact that we knew it was going to be a work in progress. You're going up against a good Ole Miss defense, a really good Alabama defense, and a good Oklahoma defense. You just hope that doesn't kind of cripple what you've done through the first 4 weeks of the season.
The biggest concern to me is the offensive line at the tackle position in pass protection, and really the tight ends and backs. It's interesting. Our boy Torricelli Simpkins, is a really good pass blocker. Now, he's been struggling in run blocking, but he's done an excellent job in pass protection. Rashawn Lee's been solid. Bell has been inconsistent. But the tackles have struggled in pass protection. And when you're going up against Ole Miss with their pass rush, that Oklahoma defense, which, look, Tennessee won that football game with their defense and their running game more than they hit some throws. Nico hit a few throws, but Tennessee scored 25. That's like what? Josh Heupel's like, seriously? We only got 25? Mm-hmm. Oklahoma's defense is good. So you're going to go up against an Oklahoma defense, an Ole Miss defense, an Alabama defense that are all, littered with players who are going to be in the NFL. And Texas A&M, their head coach is former defensive coordinator. So, yes, you got your work cut out for you with this gauntlet coming up when it comes to the opposing defenses you got to go up against. So you're hoping your offensive line, especially your tackles, can get themselves heading in the right direction, because if not, your defense is going to have to throw some donuts. Really are. And your special teams are going to have to step up and maybe get you some points, and maybe Lawyer Lisa can give out some money. Got to get this money away at some point. So, that's where you're at in the bye week to me, is you feel really good at 3-1. Your goal, I shouldn't say my goal going into this year for South Carolina was just get back to a bowl game. Pull 6, get back to a bowl game, get yourself headed in the right direction again. And look, I check the bowl projections every single week, and all the ones now are projecting South Carolina to be in some bowl, Gator Bowl, Vegas Bowl, which I'd love to see them go to the Vegas Bowl. That'd actually be kind of neat. Yeah, it would be cool. But it just shows there's belief
around the country, like, hey, you're at least good enough to go 6-6, maybe 7-5, or maybe 8-4, depending on how things go. So you've proven enough in the first month of the season that people believe, like, all right, you'll at least get back on track by going to a ball game.
I just thought of this. Let's say they do go to the Vegas Bowl. Listen, close your eyes and have this run through your ears. Gamecocks Game Day, sponsored by LexMed Ortho, live from a casino in Vegas.
The Bellagio.
Yes. Live from the Bellagio. Terry Ford and Tyler Head with Gamecocks Game Day.
Well, we might not make it into Allegiant Stadium.
There's no way. Be like, whatever happened to those guys?
The Hangover 4. That'll be us.
So, I mean, look, just get back to a bowl game. And like you said, a lot of the bowl projection folks are loving on South Carolina. After like week one, they were like one bowl projection.
Yeah. Which
that was it.
I don't blame people for thinking that
not at
because
all.
you barely escaped by an Old Dominion team. Have they won a game, by the way? Are
No.
they still
I
defeated?
think they still got a goose egg.
They're still defeated.
They're still throwing donuts.
Yeah.
It's still defeated.
So I get that, but man, you dominate Kentucky. You really, in a lot of ways, should have beaten LSU. If a few calls go a different way and Lenore Sellers doesn't get hurt, and then you handle your business against Akron, like you've given people a pretty good sample size of what this team is.
Yeah, and I know that folks will always tend to dwell on the LSU game, but you got to get past that and say 3-1 is really nice at this point of 2024.
And I thought it was important what we played yesterday for Demetrius Knight, talking about not letting that loss hang over, because you could have still been hung up on that and gone out there and still beaten Akron, I don't know, 24-14 or something like that. And it's a win, but it's not a comfortable win like the Old Dominion game. But you handled your business, you moved on. Now you're into bye week where you can get healthy. You can finally get a good look at Ole Miss. They're playing Kentucky this weekend, and then lock in for 3:30 next Saturday.
All right, we'll give you some grades from Pro Football Focus for the Akron game, and later on this week we'll maybe give you the full season of Pro Football Focus grades for this team. Just give you an idea of where everything's at the bye week, and kind of look ahead to these games that are coming up in the gauntlet for South Carolina. Friday, this show and also the postgame show, broadcasting live from the Ultimate Long Drive World Championships. It's at Partee in West Columbia, 3209 Charleston Highway. So from noon to 6, we'll be hanging out at the Long Drive, the World Long Drive Championship at Partee in West Columbia. Pro Football Focus grades. Who had the thumbs up and the thumbs down in the Akron game? That's coming up. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, till 3 on the game. halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head here on the game as we roll till 3 o'clock. Kind of taking a little look back at the grades. We watched it with our eyeballs. We see the traditional stats. Now we'll take a little dive into the Pro Football Focus grades. They're not the end-all, be-all. I mean, there's things I'll look at Pro Football Focus grades sometimes, Tyler, and go, really? Well, how drunk were they when they graded this one?
Some of the when they attribute sacks to teams, because they don't, it's not a normal sack like ESPN grades it. Like they'll attribute sacks to things that aren't, sacks by what you see with the eye. And sometimes those numbers are a little bit like, I know the offensive line wasn't great, but I don't know if they gave up that many.
Yeah, or this one. You sure the offensive line didn't give up something there? You sure?
Yeah, it goes both ways.
I've seen that one. So we'll start off with the quarterback, obviously. And Robbie Ashford was fantastic. Wasn't he the highest graded quarterback in Pro Football Focus last week?
Yes, for the entire week, yes.
Roughly just a tick under 94. Now, if you break it down a little bit, we had this conversation on the pregame show. We had it also last week leading up to the game. That Robbie Ashford, when you look back at his best game at Auburn, he made a lot of throws, around the line of scrimmage, under 10 yards, and that's really was his wheelhouse, and he'd get yak yards. Now, it wasn't a ton of yak on Saturday. Less than half of the yards were yak, but here's the breakdown. Ashford was 2 for 2 at the line of scrimmage or behind. He was, 4, 6, 7, 9 of 11 between 0 and 9 yards. He only threw one ball between 10 and 20. Which is like that intermediate sweet spot. Only one ball, to our point of he really doesn't, the intermediate area is not his friend. But he took shots down the field, and was he successful?
Yes, he was.
This is the difference. 4 of 6, 20-plus yards down the field for Robbie Ashford. And again, did Gage Larvadain help him with a nice adjustment on the one? But I'll tell you what, that post, DeMazio Bennett, between the safeties,
yep,
that was a sweet dime.
And I feel like there's the element you have to understand, obviously, that Akron's not the best secondary in the world.
No, they're not.
To where you feel like you can take a little bit more of a risk because, if they were playing Oklahoma this past weekend against that defense, you're probably keeping things pretty close to the line of scrimmage with Ashford.
To be fair, that throw that worked against Akron that was
probably
nice.
Wouldn't work against Oklahoma.
You have faster, more athletic DBs, or maybe guys who are just better in technique in general, just better players.
Yeah.
Maybe that ball isn't completed. So as much as whenever we look over a game like this, we always got to remember Akron was one of the worst teams in Division I in FBS. But you have to give Robbie Ashford his props. I mean, that throw was sweet. Mazio Bennett got open. Again, how does that translate against a better defense? I mean, that's a legitimate question. But for Saturday, you did nice work.
And I think you got to give Dow Loggins credit, too, for having some of those opportunities in there against a lesser opponent. Because, again, we know he's fine making throws around the line of scrimmage, and we imagine that he was going to be schemed up to do most of that. But, hey, why not? It's a chance to take some shots down the field because, again, you don't know if you're going to need him later on in the year. And the fact that Sellers has gotten hurt in 2 of the 3 games that he's played in so far does give a little bit of a pause. Like, okay, we might be turning to Ashford a couple more times as the season goes along. You want to make sure you have a full understanding of what he gives you on the field.
And you want him confident. To me, that's what comes away from that game. And again, how's it translate against better defenses and power forward? We get it. But like we always say here, Tyler, confidence travels. And Robbie Ashford walked off that field on Saturday. He didn't say this. Yeah, we did well, but Akron stinks. He went like this. Yeah, I can make those plays, baby.
And then he looked at what his former team did on Saturday and felt even better.
And then heard what his former head coach said, and thank God I'm not at Auburn.
Though they're probably clamoring for him to come back now.
Yeah, exactly. So if you look at a little deeper dive, too, Robbie Ashford was under pressure on almost 36% of his throws. On those throws was 3 of 5 for 46 yards. Kept clean roughly 64% of the time, 12 of 16, threw for $197 and 2 scores when kept clean. Akron blitzed on almost 68% of their dropbacks. Akron was a blitzing machine, but Ashford was 10 of 14, 186, and a touchdown versus the blitz. Not blitzed. He was just very good all the way around. He was a 5 of 7 when not blitzed. So he hit everything. Big-time throws, Pro Football Focus, that's when you make a big-time throw down the field. You get big-time throws. Robbie Ashford had 3, no turnover-worthy plays. There was 1 drop with Campbell. Defensive pressure was 10, according to Pro Football Focus. There's 3 sacks, obviously. And his adjusted completion percentage, basically what the quarterback can control on throws, the regular completion percentage for Robbie Ashford was 71.4. The adjusted completion percentage was 80. That's how well of a game, and that's how good Robbie Ashford threw the football. So, and this is interesting, too. South Carolina went play action on 43% of Ashford's dropbacks. And they were successful, 7 of 11. And overall, just a very good outing for Robbie Ashford in every way, shape, or form. And Tyler, let's get this real quick. Cut 26, Robbie Ashford talking about preparing as a starter versus just going into a game as a backup and the preparation of being a backup.
It's really just the reps aspect. I mean, coming as a backup, you don't get all the reps. And so when you're watching film, you don't get to see all the plays you've run and stuff. So it's like, okay. But now this week I got to see all of it. And it was just like, man, this is just, I feel good about it. I felt good coming into it. And D-Lo and Coach Schuler got me prepared, man. They put the time in with me, the extra work. And it's just, I don't really know how to explain it because it's still a real grind, even as the backup, because I still got to know everything, and I do that. But it was just even coming in more like me and Shula had a thing this week. We would come in after dinner time around like 7:30 to 8 and just get an hour in. And that was just something we were able to do this week just because we had the time. I was able to find it in my schedule to be able to get over there. And, man, that helped me so much tremendously, just being able to watch that with him, man, because – Coach Schuler, that's a great right there. That's a coaching great. And just to be able to learn from him and Coach D-Lo, man, they've taught me so much in my 8 months here that I haven't learned in any of my years anywhere else. So, man, it's really hats off to them because they got me prepared. And like I said, man, I'm thankful for them.
Those shot at you, those shot at Oregon. Hey, yeah.
Well, and look, he was very open about
Remember that?
In the offseason. He's like, look, I didn't get developed while I was there. And I considering Hugh Freeze's being so committed to Peyton Thorne last year, it sounds like it was very much like, this is our guy. He's going to be our guy. You stand over there and hold the clipboard for us, okay?
That's what I was getting ready to say. Look, at Oregon, it was Bo Nix had been there for 10 years, went to law school, medical school, everything else. So there was no chance of Robbie Ashford getting on the field because of Bo Nix. At Auburn, Hugh Freeze took a look at Robbie Ashford and said, no thanks, and brought in Peyton Thorne. I guess the one thing about it, and we don't know because we weren't there, but if you hear Robbie Ashford talk, it feels like, according to that side of the story, and I'm sure Hugh Freeze would tell you, dude, can't throw the ball consistently accurate. I can't work with that. But you had a guy like Malik Willis before, and you had mobile dual threat quarterbacks at Ole Miss as well. So it's not like you've never had this type of player. It feels like that Freeze looked at Ashford and was convinced it's not my guy. Why waste my time?
Yeah.
And that because, I mean, Freeze is a quarterback whisperer.
Sure.
Supposedly.
Sure.
So there had to be a reason why Freeze just went, Either he saw that Ashford just wasn't consistently accurate,
or it was going to be too much work.
Saw that the mechanics and everything was just, I don't have time. I can't do that. I need to start turning this ship around now. I'm going to go get a guy out of the portal that will be my guy out of the portal. That's what it feels like. Yeah, that worked out really well. We'll get into that later because we have another Hugh Freeze comment. But you want to talk about, and look, Hugh Freeze isn't the only one. You want to talk about arrogance. And I get it. Almost every quarterback Hugh Freeze has ever worked with, it's gone pretty well.
Yeah.
So you think I'll get Peyton Thorne in here and I'll make Peyton Thorne a quarterback. He was pretty good 2 years ago at Michigan State. I'll get him back to what he was 2 years ago. How's that going?
Not great.
And the guy you didn't want to work with at all because it wasn't worth your time or you just knew he wasn't your guy. Not to say, look, we don't know what Robbie Ashford's going to be moving forward if he has to play, but there's got to be a lot of people at Auburn going, you don't want to work with that guy? Really? He wasn't worth your time? Really?
Hindsight's 20/20.
This is who you picked? These guys? Okay, Hugh. Okay, but Hugh's taking a lot of accountability right now, and that's the important.
Sure. Sure he is. Something like that.
Hey, Coach, why are we standing at this bus stop? You'll find out. You'll find out. All right, so that's Robbie Ashford's numbers. We'll continue to take a look at the offense. Receiver room, running back room, and offensive line. We got that coming up. It's a halftime show. Terry Ford and Tyler Head, appreciate you hanging out with us, whether it's on the game in Columbia, Florence, Myrtle Beach, on the 107.5 The Game app, or on Game TV, powered by Integrated Media, and sponsored by Shepherd's Glass. More pro football focus grades on the offense is coming up on the halftime show here on the game. We're talking about the Nest in the Vista on Gadsden. I told you the story yesterday. If you missed it, I had a buddy of mine decide I need a refrigerator, and he went to the folks at the Nest. And he made the call. Look, I'm looking for a refrigerator for the kitchen, looking for this or that or the other. Here's my budget. What do you have? Oh, what do they have? The showroom's fantastic. You can go online and check out the Nest showroom. That's easy to do. It's called thenestshowroom.com. Look at just so many different things, where it's lighting, fixtures, appliances. There's so many things. We don't have time to get into it. Well, my buddy found the refrigerator after going in, sitting down, talking to Graham, the expert in appliances. They took a look at the showroom. My buddy found one in his budget that fit exactly what he wanted with the style of the kitchen. Again, it's the Nest in Gadsden. Just give those folks a call. 803-978-2025. Oh, what we're talking about, Carolina football. Just kind of look at these Pro Football Focus grades from the Akron contest. Give you an idea of what Pro Football Focus thought of South Carolina. And we went over Robbie Ashford's grades, which were phenomenal. The receiving grades, there's a couple things to look at in receiving. Now, when you look at receiving grade with Pro Football Focus, that's basically a route running grade.
Right.
How good are you at running your route tree? So there's that grade. Then obviously, if you don't have a drop, that helps you. Your overall offensive grade. You have an offensive grade on like your stats and numbers of what you did, but then you have a receiving grade, and that's your route running. And offensively, Mazeo Bennett was over 80. He was at 82 in his offensive grade. His receiving grade was 80, which meant in his route tree, he was running routes and getting open, and then he was making plays. So over 80 is phenomenal. Gage Larvadan was over 70, almost 73 in offensive grade and almost 73 in route running grade. So excellent. Others, offensive grades in the for the wide receivers, Nick Harbor was at 67. He had a 65 receiving grade. Nick has had, through the season, trouble obviously consistently getting good route running grades because, again, he's a raw wide receiver. But that's a good showing for Nick against Akron. Not big plays down the field like we're hoping for, but Nick had some good solid grades. Also catching the football, Delvon Campbell had a drop, and that hurt his overall grade. He's at 59.2. He had the only drop of the game. Other receivers, Josh Simon, his grade was around 55. He had 2 targets, had 1 catch. And his route running grade was around 60 for the game. So really, Bennett and Larvadan popped. Michael Smith, the tight ends only had, I think, 4 targets. Well, 5 if you count Connor Cox. Maybe 5 or 6. Not too many targets to the tight ends. Juju McDowell out of the backfield had a nice game if you look at the grades. McDowell, I just had it here. Where'd it go? Almost 71 offensive grade, about 64 in his route running out of the backfield or in motion.
And he just had the one ball thrown to him that he got for the touchdown.
And that was a nice adjustment because that ball was thrown behind him, and McDowell, he turned, caught it, spun back around, and ran for a touchdown.
Well, he was in his own county out there catching it because that hole was so wide open.
Yeah, there weren't too many Akron folks defensively in that area. So, I mean, Bennett and Larvadan really stick out. If you can have Larvadan healthy on the field with who we think will be healthy, Jared Brown, and Mazeo Bennett, who has had some really nice moments this year as a freshman, that's a nice starting core, right?
Yeah.
Then you'll have Nick Harbor as one of your receivers is going to get his share of reps as well. So, and we didn't even see Jacobs on Saturday, and remember, he started the opener. So you get Dre Jacobs on the field with Harbor backing up those 3 guys. You're feeling better where you're going. But Larvadan, was nice to see Gage Larvadan make some plays on Saturday. So that's the receiving. Now, when it comes to blocking, I break it down into 2 areas. Run blocking, pass protection. Now, if you look at the pass protection on Saturday, Torricelli Simpkins, 85. Simpkins in 25 pass blocking opportunities, 0 sacks, 0 hits, 0 hurries, 0 pressures. That's pretty good. So Simpkins was excellent in pass protection. So was Trayvon Ball in 21 snaps. Ball was at almost 80, just a tick under 80. Rashawn Lee was around 78. So Lee also did a nice job. How about this one? You want to talk about your eyeballs compared to Pro Football Focus? Case and Henry against Akron, 76 pass blocking grade.
I do not agree with that.
I don't agree with that one either.
He got put on his butt a couple times. He was responsible for at least, I believe, one of the sacks.
Well, Nunley went right by him. I think C.J. Nunley went right by him and got a sack.
And that's where, so they're not crediting any sacks to the offensive line in this game. And when you have a running quarterback like Robbie Ashford, a lot of times they'll say, okay, well, he ran into that sack or because of his mobility, that's why the sack happened. But I don't know. I didn't feel great about Casey Henry's performance on Saturday.
I haven't felt good about it all year. Also, offensive line-wise, Josiah Thompson, 54 pass blocking grade. You want to at least be at 60. And Kamar Bell was sitting at about 50, a little bit over 51 in his pass blocking grade. Michael Smith, again, who struggled with his pass blocking at tight end, was at 46. Now, Joshua Simon, much better at almost 70. Run blocking, this wasn't great across the board with your run blocking grades on Saturday, which is kind of weird because South Carolina runs for over 200 yards. Well, you're like, well, you should have some good run blocking grades.
Yeah, but a lot of those runs, like Ashford's ones in particular, were outside the tackle. So he's making the read, getting to the outside. And again, he's probably the most athletic guy on the field at that point in time.
Yeah, so Simpkins, run blocking wise, was a little bit around. He was around 54. Ball was a little bit over 58. Vershawn Lee was the best run blocker out of the offensive lineman at 63. Lee had a solid game, a good game. Lee had a good game. Let's see, Casey Henry, a real struggle in the run game at 42. And also Josiah Thompson, a little bit better in run blocking than pass protection at 57. And Kamar Bell, again, one of those days at about 57 in run blocking. So much better in pass protection for a couple of guys. Vershawn Lee had the best overall game. But again, your tackles, and we understand Josiah Thompson's going to have days. Would you hope he'd be better against an Akron? Yeah, but still, he's a work in progress. And Casey Henry, who feels like he's been around forever, okay, so 4 games. He's really started 5 games in his career.
Yeah, technically, if you count the opener last year.
Yeah, so he played, 4 plays?
4 plays.
Maybe?
Yeah.
So
I don't think he had a grade on that one.
I mean, you give him less of a leeway because he's been around the program for, 3 years than Josiah Thompson, who just showed up. It was Casey Henry's, 21?
Yeah,
probably.
And in the past couple of years, we've heard a lot about how good he's supposed to be at that right tackle spot. And now that we're finally seeing him, at full health, it's just not translating.
No, and Kamar Bell at guard has had his struggles. I mean, he's been more inconsistent. There's been some games where Bell's been solid, but he's had some games where he's struggled. Ball with 21 snaps at guard had a nice game. I mean, his run grade was under 60, about 58, between 58 and 59. Pass protection was really good. So we'll see coming out of the bye, are we going to get more run with Trevon Ball to go in there with a Kamar Bell? I don't know. We'll see. And, Tree has been nicked up from what we understand, Babalade. Or maybe he get a little bit more snaps to help out Casey Henry. But that is your offensive line. Again, that's the position on this football team far and away that has to get better.
It does.
It just has to get better.
Again, the pass rush that you're going to see as the season rolls along is going to get tougher. And again, we know Lenore Sellers still a little green back there at quarterback where, he's holding on to the ball for a while, and you just don't want to continue to get him hit, especially when you have the injury concerns he's had so far this season.
Yeah, all right. So the running backs, the final roll through the offense at running back. I mean, obviously, best running back was Robbie Ashford, 91 run grade. But Matthew Fuller, Juju McDowell were over 70. Fuller was at 75. McDowell was at 71. With their offensive grades, their run grades were also over 70. Jawan Howell was just a little under 70 in offensive grade and a little bit over 70 in run grade. Oscar Attaway, 68 and 70. So the running backs were all graded pretty solid to good on Saturday.
Yeah, no, good performance overall. And again, you don't want to see Rocket go down, but I think everybody that got to play at running back stepped up and did a good job. And maybe potentially earn themselves some more playing time as the season rolls along.
Now, SEC StatCat, my go-to for yards before contact, they haven't gotten to this game yet.
It takes them a few days to get to a game like this.
Out of all the games, with SEC teams, he wasn't going to. Can't wait to grade that South Carolina-Akron game.
He apparently does it all himself, so we'll give him some leeway.
Absolutely. That guy's an animal. But Pro Football Focus does have yards after contact. Robbie Ashford ran for 156 if you take out the sacks, obviously. And he had 58 yards after contact. Out of Matthew Fuller's 25 yards, 17 were after contact. Juju McDowell, 29 yards, 21 after contact. Howell ran for 33, 23 after contact. Attaway, 42, 26 after contact. So a lot of yards, 157 totally as a team with yards after contact, averaging 3.14 crack. All right, defense is next. And your Firehouse Sub Text Hour, 803-404-6100 halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head on the game. Oh, time for our Firehouse Sub text of the hour, 803-404-6100 here on the Halftime Show. What do you got, man?
Yeah, we're going through South Carolina's schedule and our little more sense of optimism with the now that we know a little bit about these teams. Nimbus Texter weighs in and says South Carolina has a chance to win 10 games this year. Every game is winnable. You don't beat Kentucky that way and look that competitive against LSU without thinking that 10 games aren't realistic.
Okay. Hey, like we said, you can go through these games and all right, the four we kind of focused on Oklahoma, A&M, well, it's three, Oklahoma, A&M, Missouri.
Yep.
Before the season started, now you go, wow, you win these games. So you throw those three with the three you already got. Then you think, look, Vanderbilt, that's not going to be easy. But let's say you do beat Vanderbilt in Vandy, right?
Right. There may be a few more Vandy fans there this year.
Maybe 20. So there's your seventh win. Wofford, obviously, is your eighth. If we're going total optimistic, glass full, then you have Clemson and Bama and Ole Miss.
Right.
So now you're saying, okay, you win two of those three, and you end up 10-2.
And is Clemson good? I mean, they've beat App State and NC State in their last two games. I don't think either one of those teams are all that great.
Well, that's the problem with Clemson. Is Clemson, you went up against Georgia, and Georgia just stepped on you like a lit cigarette butt. And then Appalachian State. Now, when you first beat App State, you go, wow.
Yeah, which App State is typically one of the better G5 teams, but not this year. And
you went, well, when you first saw that game, you went, wow. Clemson rung it up. Their offense, all of a sudden, Klubnik's throwing the ball down the field, and they're making big plays everywhere, and they scored, 400 against App State?
Yep.
Then we find out South Alabama scored 400 on App State. So we're like,
is South Alabama better than Clemson?
We would think no. So
I'm using transitive property here.
Right. So then we go to the other deal, and that was NC State. Now, typically, NC State's a good, solid ACC Group of Four program that gets to bowl games, wins like 8 games. It's one of those programs that you look up and go, well, they won 8 games how many times?
Yeah, I was surprised they won 9 games a year ago because nobody talked about it.
Now, but then you watch this year, and they've decided to take defense off. And not just Clemson, but everybody's scoring points against NC State.
That's right.
And all of a sudden, you're like, well, okay, how good's really NC State? So Clemson, in theory, they're 2-1, and they bounce back from that horrid opener, and they've shown a lot of life on offense we haven't seen in a while. But is that just they went up against 2 really bad defenses, or they really all of a sudden have decided to resuscitate offense at Clemson, and their defense this year isn't as good as it's been the last couple of years either? So,
right.
To your point, I don't know.
And their schedule now that, Florida State is in the, basement of the ACC, their schedule doesn't look as daunting as maybe it wants to. I think they still got to play Louisville, but for the most part, they don't have a ton of tough competitions as the season rolls along. So I think you could run into it where, I don't know, maybe they're already an 8-9 win 10 win team at that point in time that may not be as daunting as it seems. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so we really don't know any of this. We feel like Ole Miss and Bama are the 2 best opponents on the schedule. And are those going to be easy W's? No, we went over this earlier, though. Both those teams have, whether they're little teeny ones, they have some question marks. So I see, like, Texter, glass all the way full, baby. It's all good. See where you're going. Love the optimism. We'll see how it all plays out in this kooky. I think we got a kooky year from what we've seen the first month.
Yep.
Smells like 07, doesn't it? Has a smell to it.
A little bit. We got to have some major upsets at the top.
Yeah.
I know Georgia survived the scare against Kentucky, but the curse of the 2 was the kind of signature of 07. So something along those lines would put it in that same realm.
We need some heavyweights taking a tumble is what we need.
Hey, if Alabama lost to South Florida, that would have been right on cue.
That would have been. All right. So we'll look at the defensive Pro Football Focus numbers for South Carolina during football in the 1 o'clock hour. Also, there was football last night in the NFL. Wow. You got 2 teams who we thought were going to be playoff contenders, and they still can be. Look, there's 14 games left in this thing. But typically when you start 0-3, your playoff window, it's about that big. And you see my fingers?
Yeah, historically doesn't mold too well, and there are some teams that I think we are surprised are sitting at 0-3 right now.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is the teams that are at 0-3, you're like, wow, 0-3? And there are some teams that are at 3-0, you go, really? 3-0? It's been a very weird start to the NFL season. So we got that coming up in football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Also on the show before 3 o'clock, give you a chance to win South Carolina Ole Miss tickets. Be listening for our ticket sounder. That's coming up between now and 3. Like I said, your chance to win tickets for South Carolina and Ole Miss. The 1 o'clock hour is football, and more football, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. This is the halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. We roll till 3. Then the postgame show with Jay and Elijah will take over from there. Appreciate you here on the game in Columbia, Florence, or Myrtle Beach, or on our app, or on our cute little video stream. Thank you. Talk to you in a minute. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head. In the 1 o'clock hour, we do football, and more football, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. I believe, is it this hour, Tyler, will give you a chance to snag a pair of tickets.
I believe that is correct.
That's coming up between now and 2, your chance to win
By the way,
Carolina Ole Miss tickets.
How much fun did you have answering the phones this morning?
Oh, I had a blast. Love talking to the folks. Especially when there's 7,000 of them trying to win tickets.
Well, when you allow people the opportunity to go see a highly touted game like Ole Miss, you get quite a few calls.
With a little extra something in it, so to speak.
You could say that.
Yep, you could
little
say
extra juice, so to speak.
Look at you go. Look at you go
well,
over that.
I don't know. I feel like. Did you ever read the Harry Potter books or see the movies?
I saw the first 2 movies, then I checked out.
You know how Lord Voldemort is he who shall not be named?
Yes.
Because like even saying his name like is bad. Like I feel like Juice is kind of almost taking on that identity here locally. Like yeah, we don't even speak the name anymore.
It's true. It is true. Have you seen a guy go from wow we love him to wow we hate him so quick?
It's kind of the transfer portal these days. There's a lot of guys in that similar way. I mean, not quite the same thing, but look at Sonny Dykes going back to SMU the other day, getting ejected from the game. They gave him crap the entire game.
They hate him.
They hate him for leaving him high and dry, and taking Garrett Riley with him.
Yeah, and you know with Wells, it's not just the transfer portal, but then remember the comments that didn't go well. So we will give you tickets, but between now and top of the hour, South Carolina Ole Miss, be listening for the ticket sounder, and we'll get that taken care of for you here on the halftime show on the game. All right, defensive grades from Saturday. Obviously, when you hold a team to 154 total yards, and they only had 1 touchdown drive, your defensive grades are probably going to be pretty good. O'Donnell Fortune led the way, a total defensive grade of 77.3. His coverage grade was 77.4. Now, Fortune's had issues in tackling this year.
As have a lot of guys.
His tackle grade, though, was really good on Saturday, 76.2. Kyle Kennard, I know you're stunned. Kyle Kennard had another good day. Kennard, total defensive grade of 74. Pass rush grade, a little bit over 70. He did pick up a half a sack. Kennard's tackle grade around 75, run defense at 66. Kennard's just solid. I mean, does he get after the quarterback? Yes, but Kennard also, a lot of edge guys do not do this, but Kennard plays the run. You know, there are edge players who like running backs. Seriously, I just tackle quarterbacks, bro. Debo Williams had a good day. Overall grade between 73 and 74. Now, Debo's another guy that's, you know, had his moments with some tackling issues, but his tackle grade was really good, almost 80. Run defense only around 50. And pass rush at 75. Debo the last couple of weeks has ramped up some pass rush grade. Where they've been blitzing a little bit more.
He and Kennard had the half sack together, I believe.
Yep,
and
you're
then,
exactly right.
Porter had the other one late in the game.
And Debo also had a good coverage grade at 73 for the times he did drop back in coverage. Bam Martin Scott, a good day. Overall grade between 71 and 72. Now, Bam Martin Scott's a guy that's had some tackling issues, and he missed a tackle on Saturday, so his tackling grade really low at 44. But solid numbers across the board against the run, mid-70s. Pass rush was a little bit over 68. So Bam Martin Scott, a good day. Nick Manwari, who has had the best overall grades on this team at times. Solid day. Again, his grade over 70. Coverage, 67. Tackling at 80. Even got a little pass rush in on a blitz. Run defense, 67. So Nick Manwari, a good solid day all the way around. I'm really happy for DQ Smith because his grade was like 68. Still had some tackling issues, but got the pick. He's a guy that's had his struggles this year, is DQ Smith. So it's good to see Woody ended up grading out. Jalen Kilgore's had a good year. He was sitting about 68. Coverage grade at 67. Across the board, tackle grade was good. Just a good day, again, for Kilgore as well. TJ Sanders, TJ Sanders is going to hear his name probably, I could hear, 4th round. I could see TJ Sanders going in the draft. He rushes the passer, but you know what he also does this year? Much more effort in playing the run this year. Sanders' overall grades have been good. He was, this is one of his lower rated games. He was still in the mid-60s. Run grade was solid in the mid-60s. Pass rush over 60. Tackled his grades over 70. So good day for TJ Sanders. So most guys are in the 60s, Tyler. Tonka Hemingway, Goodwine. The guy I really like, again, two underrated guys that came from Pitt. I really love them. DeAndre Jules was solid. Obviously, Bengali Kamar didn't play because of injury. They held him out, which I thought was smart. The lowest graded Gamecock defensively was Dylan Stewart. 41. Rough day at the office for Dylan Stewart. And hey, look, take away the coverage grade because he's not here to cover people, right?
Right.
So I don't care about that. Pass rush was only at 63. Tackling grade was good at 75. Run defense was under 50. So whether it was the pass rush, the run, his run defense, he had a tough day at the office. The coverage grade was really bad, but not to be mean, I don't care about Dylan Stewart in coverage.
Yeah, that's not why he's here. If he's, I don't know, taking on a tight end on a crosser or something like that, I'll forgive him.
I bet you
his pass rushing.
How
ability.
much you bet me it's a very small sample of coverage?
You know what? It's probably, I don't know, like a running back out in the flat or something.
Yeah,
maybe.
I'm looking for it right now because it's got to be. Let's see, Stewart. Let's see, coverage down here at the bottom. Yeah, I mean, it was like very small sample, but he did get beat.
Listen,
so
I will take him at a zero pass rush grade if zero coverage grade if his pass rush is still 80.
So again, this is where Pro Football Focus. I get you. I understand the way you grade, but I don't really care about Dylan Stewart in coverage. Not to be mean.
And give credit to Akron. Their game plan was to neutralize what Carolina did best when it came to rushing the passer. And yeah, Kennard and Debo got home at one point in time, but they got things out quick. They played everything close to the line of scrimmage minus the long play they hit for the touchdown. So they did not, like South Carolina, just sit back there and, eat them up.
No, because it was smart. You're watching one of the best pass rushing units in the country. You don't want to get your quarterback, dismembered. So it was smart to get the ball out quick. Akron likes those little bubble screens and little quick throws, but there was a lot more of getting the ball out quick to neutralize South Carolina's pass rush. But, Carolina tackled well. They only had like 3 missed tackles, I think, in the game. So just an excellent, excellent outing by the defense all the way around. And Akron, 154 total yards, half of their total yards on one drive, roughly?
Yep.
Somewhere in that neighborhood. So not a surprise the defense graded well with Pro Football Focus. Overall, it turned out as a thumbs-up performance. The only thing that came out of that game negative was that Rocket Sanders rolled his ankle or whatever the case. And if Sanders is ready to go in a couple of weeks, which feels like he will, then, hey, no harm, no foul. But what we talked about going into this game, whether it's the traditional numbers, the scoreboard, the eye test, Pro Football Focus, this is what you do to a bad team. You pummel them. And that's what South Carolina did. They pummeled them. So excellent work with Pro Football Focus stuff there. Just kind of give you an idea of what happened from the grades of PFF. Let's get a cut here talking about the defense. This is a little combo. Kyle Kennard and also Demetrius Wright tonight talking on the value of getting all the starters out in the second half so folks will get a rest going into a bye week. I'm sorry, Tyler. It's cut 27 from yesterday.
I think going into this bye week, that was probably one of the hugest things that happened in this game because we got a lot of time to between now and next week and the week after, we got a lot of time to rest our bodies and come back to whole before we play a good competition the week after. So I feel like that was good and huge for us to be able to not play as much as we could have in the fourth quarter. Big thing for us.
Yeah, add on that just because that goes on to show the pillars that we have with in this program, which is to compete each and every day, even when it gets to starters, guys being taken out, there are backups and threes being put in. There's no drop off. There's always a standard. There's always an expectation. So for those guys to go out there and still ball out is that's the standard here, and that's what we're going to continue to preach. Even as we go into the bye week, we're not going to relax. Can't put the towel down. Got to keep raising the standard.
The transfer portal, so many guys came in this year, right?
Yep.
But you look over the defensive side of the ball with Kennard, with Knight, with Bengali Kamara. To me, no one talks about how good he's been. I mean, he's not getting starter snaps. When Kamara's in the game, especially against the run, plays really well. DeAndre Jules, again, another guy that we don't talk a lot about because he's not a starter, but Jules has played really well.
Yep.
If you look at the guys that were brought in, and Goodwine's not getting a lot of snaps, but Goodwine's holding his own as well. But the guys that were brought into this defense from the transfer portal have at least held their own, if not better. And Kennard, you can make an argument for the best player on the team.
It's kind of funny because I feel like what Kennard and Stewart have done have kind of hogged the spotlight of the defense when guys like Kamara and Jules and stuff, who have done perfectly fine, they're just not popping off the page quite as much, but being solid contributors.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was talking to a couple people in the press box on Saturday. Look, you saw Kennard's stats at Georgia Tech. You went, oh, okay, he can rush the passer. That's cool. Very few people were going, this cat can be a game wrecker, because he's been a game wrecker this year for South Carolina coming off the edge.
Yeah, no, he has gone a long way in potentially raising himself on draft boards to where he might, end up getting his name called here when the spring rolls around, and certainly a pleasant surprise. And again, when you have him and Stewart on both sides, in addition to like Gilbert Edmond, who's also had some good moments as well, somebody else that kind of gets overshadowed with how good those two guys are doing. It's one thing to defend one side; you can't defend them both at the same time.
No, I mean,
if one's covered, the other one's coming.
Yeah, and when again, you see Stewart. Like the LSU game, again, they've got grown men playing tackle who are going to play in the NFL. And Stewart got slowed down against LSU and against Akron. Again, he got neutralized in a way that the game plan was part of it. But, he's had better days. 4 games in, though, you got to be doing backflips on what Dylan Stewart is and what Kyle Kennard is bringing off the other edge. And it just... We've talked about this the last couple of years, going into this year. And we know this. We all watch football. We get it. But when you get to watch what a pass rush does to the opposing passing game, you just, you're like, I'm telling you, Brock Vandergrift still wakes up in a cold sweat from the Kentucky game.
Yeah, it's one of those things. When it's on, it's very fun to watch.
Oh, yeah. And the first quarter against LSU. I mean, what they were doing to an LSU offensive line that hadn't given up a sack. What was it, 3 pressures or whatever it was? It was ridiculous.
Little to nothing through the first couple games.
And they got after it in the first quarter against LSU. Will Campbell, again, who will be a first-round pick in the NFL draft, Kennard tied that cat in knots. I mean, it's just... The transfer portal has done very well on the defensive side of the ball for South Carolina.
Yeah, you would say, and look, you don't win the transfer portal every single year. Sometimes your transfer portal additions don't go as far as you want them to go, but in this very young season, I would say the transfer portal class has been very much positive for Carolina. Football
in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. All right, Wednesday, Carolina calls. Derek Scott, Lamont Paris. Basketball practice has started for the men. We'll hear from Lamont and Derek again on Wednesday. I think it's at Backstreet still. 6 p.m. You'll hear Carolina calls Wednesday right here on the Game special basketball version as Carolina football has the week off. Monday Night Football, 2 games. We'll talk about, do we like that? Obviously, Jacksonville didn't. And we'll get into what happened last night in the National Football League with 2 Monday Night Football tilts. It is the halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. Football, and more football in the 1 o'clock hour. Sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors on the Game. it's football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors here on the game. Last night, the Buffalo Bills did this a lot, over and over and over against Jacksonville.
Hamilton looking off to left, rolling that way, and floats it for a touchdown. Ty Johnson joins the party. 5 first half scores by 5 different Bills. It's an avalanche.
It was an avalanche. Jacksonville, that was not pretty. That was ugly.
I'm thankful we had 2 games to watch last night because this one was over by halftime. So at least you had the option of, hey, let's see what's happening with Washington and Cincinnati at least.
Which was a hell of a game, by the way.
Which was a very fun game because, I mean, the Bills just bludgeoned the Jaguars. By the didn't Trevor Lawrence get a nice fancy new contract in the offseason?
It was 34-0 at the half. So really,
They had 3. They had 3.
Oh, 34-3. I'm sorry. 34-3 at the half. So basically, if you're Jacksonville, you can go, hey, we won the third quarter 7-3.
Good for you.
Problem was the other 3 you got killed. And, first of all, Josh Allen was phenomenal. And when they traded Stephon Diggs, I think we talked about this on the show afterwards. And they didn't really go out and make any veteran additions in the wide receiver room, right? And they did draft Keon Coleman. The kid Shakur that has been on the roster, they were building a bigger role for him. They're looking, and they're saying, okay, plus we're going to feature the tight end more, Dalton Kincaid. We're running the ball more. Remember the last part of the year, they started running the ball more with Cook.
Yep.
And sometimes when you get rid of that guy that, he's far and away your number one dude, you're always, and if you're Josh Allen, the human nature is feed him the rock. Feed him the rock. He's my number one. I got to look for Diggs. Sometimes you take that guy out of the equation. Now the quarterback just drops back and says, like, option 1. Option 1's not there. Option 2, option 3. He's not looking for a guy. He's looking for the open guy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think that speaks volumes to how great of a quarterback Josh Allen is because despite the fact he does not have a superstar receiver anymore, he's still elevating this entire offense and doing a lot of things like, what he does on the ground as well. And, throwing the 4 touchdown passes last night. So this offense doesn't seem like it's skipped a beat since Stephon Diggs has left.
Well, that was the question mark. Okay, Allen had Diggs. Allen had Diggs and Emmanuel Sanders. Allen had this guy, Diggs, and this guy, and this guy. Now it's Allen and a bunch of who? So can Allen elevate? Can Allen just run that offense by going guy 1, guy 2, guy 3? Can Allen make receivers better? And so far it's a short sample, but it seems like that's what Allen's doing. He's just dropping back, and the first open dude's getting the rock.
Yep.
And they're running the football. That's something that was one of my biggest complaints about Buffalo up until the end of last year when they put Brady in at OC, was they just didn't care about running the football. And at some point, you got to be able to run the ball. No one's saying you got to be like South Carolina and run it 70% of the time. You don't do that in the NFL. You throw it 60% of the time and you run it 40% in the NFL, pretty much. But you got to be able to, at some point, especially in the postseason, have a running back that's not named Josh Allen be productive. And Buffalo was like, hey, we don't give a bleep about running the ball. We just have Josh Allen do everything. And so now they are running the football with actual running backs. And Allen's just going back and looking for the first open guy and delivering the rock. And he's still being Josh Allen. So far, it's only 3 games in, Tyler. But Bills look, and remember, there was a big question mark this year with the Bills. They lost a lot of guys on both sides of the ball because of cap reasons. It's early, but right now you're sitting at 3-0.
Sitting at 3-0, Josh Allen is yet to turn the ball over this season. He's got the best quarterback rating in the entire NFL. They're feeling good. Now, look, they've been in this situation plenty of times in the past couple of years. The question that's always going to remain in Buffalo is, what do you do when you run into Kansas City in the playoffs?
That's the whole AFC, right?
Can you finally get past them?
And this year so far, Kansas City in 3 games. Kansas City's 3-0. They could be 0-3.
Oh, Kansas City is not playing their best football right now, but they're so good, they're still finding a way to win.
Right. Patrick Mahomes is not Patrick Mahomes, and they're still 3-0.
Travis Kelce seems to be dwindling down a little bit here.
Travis Barker.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unreal. It's
It's not the best football, but again, they're finding ways to win, even if it is at the last second, or by the benefit of the Falcons calling a bad 4th and short play, or not getting a pass interference called on Kyle Pitts in the end zone,
or a toe doesn't get in the end zone.
Like it's one of those years where maybe the ball just bounces their way in a lot of games, and that may be what ends up being the deciding factor in a lot of them.
All right, the good is Buffalo. The bad and the ugly and the hideous was Jacksonville.
Oof.
Everywhere. I mean, defensively got destroyed. Buffalo took their foot off the gas a bit, and Buffalo still rolled out almost 400 total yards.
But Buffalo could have hit 60 easily.
Yes. Jacksonville's defense was a sieve. They were terrible, but they were consistent, couldn't stop the run or the pass. And offensively, Trevor Lawrence he was bad. Look, I like Trevor Lawrence. I do. I root for Trevor Lawrence. I like Trevor Lawrence. But we got to be real here. I mean, a lot of it, everybody talked about his injuries last year, and that's legit. He was beat up. But Trevor Lawrence has not looked right for a while now.
He's not. And look, they don't have a great offensive line. He's been sacked 11 times already this season, but his numbers through 3 games are pretty disappointing. He hasn't completed more than 60% of his passes in any of those games, only 2 touchdowns and 1 interception on the season so far. Like, he's not looking like the dude that just got paid a boatload of money in the offseason.
Well, that's part of this. He was pressured on, I think, 44% of his dropbacks last night. He was running for his life.
Yeah.
But on the one pick, there was no pressure. He dropped back, scanned the field, and made a god-awful throw. I mean, don't get me wrong. He hit Hamlin right in the numbers. So, problem is Hamlin plays for Buffalo.
Yes.
So, I mean, Lawrence wasn't very good. Yeah, I mean, it's more than just Lawrence. The offensive line, you're right, is... I mean, the receiver room, I like Brian Thomas, the rookie from LSU. Christian Kirk... He had a ball he should have caught last night. He didn't catch, but Christian Kirk is fine. Gabe Davis is a good 3. They've got some decent weapons at running back with ATN and also Bigsby. The offensive line's a problem, but Trevor Lawrence has been a problem, just to be fair. And like you said, they gave him a boatload of money. It's an actual boat. There's a boat in his yard filled with money.
A boat, and it's overflowing on the sides.
Yes. The other game was phenomenal. I'm going to tell you this, man. It's only 3 games, but that was a masterpiece that Daniels put up last night. What Jaden Daniels did last night, 21 of 23 for 254, 2 touchdowns. That was a rookie record, by the way. 91% completion percentage.
It's kind of one of those instances. Everybody's obviously going to look at what Caleb Williams is going to do as number 1 pick, what Drake May is going to be as what the 3rd pick or whatever he was, but Jaden Daniels might end up being the best quarterback of the entire draft class.
Yeah, I mean, look, Jaden Daniels was really good throwing the deep ball last year at LSU, right?
Yep.
So that deep shot to McLaren was at 60 yards in the air. Should not be a surprise.
Yeah. McLaren finally had somebody that could throw him a long ball.
He's stunned.
He didn't know what to do.
He's like, well, this ball's in my hand. But the second touchdown, when a Cincinnati Bengals defender's helmet is inside of Daniels' chest and he hangs it and makes that dime throw down the sideline to McLaren, look, the first touchdown, I get it, a lot of air yards, but that throw, he didn't bail, stood in there in the pocket, made that throw, and got lit up, and it was a touchdown.
Yep.
He was so good last night. Joe Burrow was phenomenal last night, too. And Cincinnati still lost. That's why I don't give 1-loss records of quarterbacks. Last night's an example.
Yeah, no, I think Washington might be a fun team to watch this year.
Yeah, I mean, that offensive line in D.C. is nothing special either. But Daniels has got to, he's got to learn how to do? Slide.
Yeah.
Get out of bounds.
Yeah, you're not facing college kids anymore.
You're not going against Mississippi State. Slide, get out of bounds. And talk to RG3. But yeah, the Bengals are 0-3. Jacksonville's 0-3. 2 teams that were looked at as possible playoff teams.
Yeah.
And Jacksonville looks terrible.
Yeah, I would say the Bengals are closer. I mean, they could have beaten the Chiefs last weekend, and obviously this was a back-and-forth game. But, yeah, not a good sense of feeling in Cincinnati right now.
No. All right, so that was last night in the NFL and Monday Night Football. Do you like the 2 games real quick? Do you like 2 Monday Night Football games?
You got options. Well, one game's at halftime, the other game's in, the second quarter.
And if one's a dog...
Got the other one, which is exactly what happened last night.
I got no problem with it either. All right, football in the 1 o'clock hour. We'll get back to Carolina, talk some South Carolina as we're rolling into the bye week. And Hugh Freeze is talking again. That's coming up here on the halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head here on the game. Oh, we're always talking football in the 1 o'clock hour here on the halftime show, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. Appreciate you hanging out with us like always. All right, one thing we always look at is obviously Carolina sitting at a bye week after beating Akron 3-1 on the year. We always look at these two stats on offense, Tyler. We still haven't gotten yards before contact in the run game, but we do have success rate.
Mm-hmm.
South Carolina had 32 instances of 1st and 10 in the game against Akron and got 5 or more yards on 13 of those. So roughly 41% success rate, best of the season. So that's good. I mean, obviously, you'd love to get it even better, but that's good.
They were a little improved on 3rd down as well. Their average distance on 3rd down this week was 6.2, which is the best since week 1, which was 7.1 against Old Dominion. A little better on conversions at 35%, going 5 of 14. So not where you want it to be. Stepper in the right direction, though, that, again, you're playing a much weaker defense in Akron to be able to convert at that clip, but still some room to improve.
But here's the interesting part. We're like 4 or 5 on 4th down. Yeah,
they converted a lot of 4th downs, more than I think Beamer even realized when he was talking about it in his post-game presser. But there was an aggressiveness that they wanted to display, and they certainly did out there and did it.
Yeah, so, again, things were better. And you can always have to look at the opponent, obviously. But you did see things trend in the right direction regarding success rate on 1st down, which is on 1st down gaining 5 yards or more.
Yep.
Got to 41%. You'd still like to tick that sucker up even more to stay away from your 3rd and 9s and 3rd and 10s. And this past week, you average roughly 3rd and 6. That's better than we've been seeing, but obviously you got to do that against a higher level of competition that's coming up. And it's going to be your way. All right. So Hugh Freeze, Auburn head coach, basically was the bus driver on Saturday in the postgame as he drove the bus over his quarterbacks. And Hugh Freeze then talked once again to the media, discussing the offensive/quarterback issues, and said something else pretty interesting, too, about playing Arkansas. So let's hear some more Hugh Freeze, because you never can get enough of Hugh Freeze.
Always confident, but, I hadn't met with the quarterbacks yet, and just kind of hear them talk me through, the decision that was made and see if we did an adequate job of preparing them for that given play, or if it's just something they saw or just a poor decision. We've got to figure out all of that. And if we haven't coached them well enough on that given play for the coverage that was given on it, that's something we've got to look at ourselves about. If they can explain it totally in detail, then, we got to expect better from them also. So it's kind of a combination of things that we'll have to find out when we go through it with them.
So that was a little bit better than we got on Saturday. But, still, again, and we questioned that yesterday, it's like, do you really want to be, slapping your guys in front of the media and press conferences, especially if you're the head coach? And I get you're frustrated. Look, who wouldn't be frustrated? The fans on the planes are frustrated with the fact that the Auburn quarterbacks like to throw the ball to the other team. I get it. But these are your guys, man. This is a choice you made, Hugh. How much of it is you? How much of it do you have to tweak your stuff to make it as... Again, is there something that's not being communicated? Is there something you could do better from a coaching standpoint and a play caller and a play designer and a system builder of offense that could help your quarterbacks? Is there something? You got to look at you first, brother, before you start, tearing down your players.
Sure.
And if you want to tear down your players, I got a great idea, Tyler. Why don't you bring them in your office, shut the door, have everybody put their phone in a bag and turn it off, and then lay it to them.
Can that lead us into Lane Kiffin's not so subtle dig at Auburn in his press conference yesterday?
I love a good Lane dig.
is that relationship. I just think from on the field, there's a trust level there of, we spend a lot of time with him and then let him play too on Saturdays. And I just think that, like you said, it started one way. I think that, you build that, especially for a guy that we didn't really recruit out of high school, any of that, didn't have a previous relationship. And I think it pays off, when you have relationships and the quarterbacks trust you too, and you go back to Matt Corral when he threw 6 interceptions, and before I even got to the media, sitting down with him, telling him, we got to do a better job calling plays. I got to coach better, and don't worry, we got your back. And so I think that goes a long ways, and goes a long ways with kids in recruiting, knowing what they're going to get when they get here from relationship, and that they can trust us to have their back.
Lane is playing 3D chess.
Oh, it's so funny. And he does it without having to say Hugh Freeze's name. You have to bring up Auburn.
But just the Matt Corral thing.
Oh, yeah.
Through 6 interceptions.
Through 6 interceptions.
But before I ever spoke to the media, I sat down, because Hugh Freeze said on Saturday, I hadn't talked to the quarterbacks yet. He said, I sat down with Matt Corral. I told him, hey, when we talked, I got your back, buddy. And then I talked to the media. Like, he is a master at this.
So if you're a quarterback, who do you want to play for?
Lane Kiffin. It's like, hey, that coach will actually, coach me up on what went wrong before he goes out there blabbering about my performance to the media.
And that's the thing. Look, you got to, as a coach, you got to keep your dirty laundry in-house if there is dirty laundry. But as a coach as well, because it's like anything. If I'm a player in a locker room and my coach goes in a press conference in front of a microphone and the media and fans and the whole world and tears up my teammates, what makes me think he won't get to me at some point if I have a bad game or a bad day? And it comes off to accountability. Now, Hugh was better in this last cut.
Yeah.
But still.
Now here's the thing. He's not wrong in what he's saying.
No.
Like, he's right.
But that's not the point.
Right.
Sometimes I had a buddy of mine who was running like talk stations, right, in clusters, and he was crazy successful. And he was also very confident in his success and how successful he is and how smart he was. Well, one day he's carrying his stuff out in a cardboard box. And you know what he told me? He said, Terry, sometimes being right makes you wrong. In this case, Hugh Freeze is right, but it makes him wrong because, again, you don't need to say that in front of everybody.
Right.
That's the thing. You can pull your quarterbacks aside like Lane Kiffin and say, look, man, we got to fix this thing. I got to see what I can do better to help you. That's what I got to do. I got your back. We're all good. That's what you do. To me, that's 101.
And that is not just for the Lane Kiffin side of things. That is recruiting ammo everyone's going to use against you, man.
Yes.
Oh, you're looking at Auburn? Did you see how Hugh Freeze threw his quarterbacks on the bus?
Play for that guy?
What's going to happen when you have a bad game, huh?
Yeah, sure. It just goes off with this whole thing, like with the Cowboys. I keep seeing Micah Parsons and Dak talking. I'm hearing a lot of stuff. I feel like, especially with Parsons, when he said, I'm doing my job, nobody behind me is, though. That's not what you say when you're a leader either. When you're a leader, you're like, look, we're in this together. We all got to get better, starting with me.
Right.
I feel like with you, your locker room's looking at you like, wow, geez, glad the coaches got our back. But with a guy like a Micah Parsons, if I'm on defense, I'm like, hey, man, want a little less time on the podcast, a little less time about you being you. Maybe you need to be here more. Maybe you need to be more invested. I feel like in Dallas, the leaders aren't really leading, or the people who are supposed to be following don't respect the leadership.
There seems to be a lot of internal turmoil there.
So, how a coach is with players matters. A locker room dynamic matters with leaders and the guys in the room. And Lane, here's the funniest part. If you'd have said 10 years ago, the guy doing it right is Lane Kiffin, run that one through your head. The guy doing it right is Lane Kiffin.
Yeah.
All right, Firehouse Sub text the hour, 803-404-6100. That's coming up. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. Coming up also, tickets. South Carolina, Ole Miss. That is coming up as well. Be listening for the sounder. And then we'll tell you the caller number. All that's on the way. Football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors on the game. Let's do caller number 6, 803-404-6100. Snag you some tickets to go see Carolina and Ole Miss a week from Saturday at Williams Brice. All right, Firehouse Up, text the hour, 803-404-6100. What do you got there, Tyler?
Nameless texter says, does Clemson offer a class for quarterbacks on how to finesse NFL contracts?
Well, that's what's interesting. You had two guys. One was first overall, one was a top 10 pick. Both looked like they were going to be franchise quarterbacks in the NFL for a good long time, especially Deshaun Watson. And now, Deshaun Watson had a good first throw on Sunday for the Browns as they went up 7-0 quick on the Giants. And after that, Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence last night was god-awful. And again, offensive line's not helping. Just like, in Cleveland, the offensive line, which is typically a very good offensive line, had some ups and downs. Neither one of those guys are looking great. And both of them have a boatload of cash. They might have more money than a couple of continents combined. And there's trouble. You can legitimately say Cleveland's a quarterback away from being a really good football team. And they were before. That's why they went and got Deshaun Watson. And now they're a good quarterback away from being a really good team without all the cap space. Because Deshaun Watson's sucking up cap room. Who would have known a few years ago this is the way it would be? And look, Trevor Lawrence, obviously, he got that first year with Urban Meyer, so that was... Then, in year 2, Doug Peterson comes in. Lawrence looks like a different quarterback. You go to the playoffs last year. Lawrence was hurt. Jags kind of fell apart a bit down the stretch, missed the playoffs. But, again, I'm one of them saying, they're going to compete for a playoff spot. Can they still compete for a playoff spot? Sure. The odds are really stacked against them right now. 0-3 and not looking very good at all. Not looking very good at all. So, who would have known? We appreciate the text, 803-404-6100. You got our winner here, my man?
Yeah, Christian. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Christian. Snagged yourself some tickets for Ole Miss in South Carolina a week from Saturday. All right, so we have our poll question up on our little Twitter X at 1075 The Game. Poll question of the day. Now that we are a third of the way through the season, what record do you see the Gamecocks finishing at? 8-4, 7-5, 6-6, or other? 38%, 7-5 right now. 36% at 6-6, 23% at 8-4, 4% at other. So far, 135 votes. We just started this sucker. 135 votes, and over 1,000 folks have taken a look at it so far, so we appreciate that. So we still have people in that sweet spot between 6 and 8 wins. No comments yet, even though 4% think other. I looked at the years like 6-6. I just remember we were trying to figure out what game was going to be number 6.
Yeah.
And now I feel better about them getting 6, obviously. Do I think they can pop 7? Yeah, I can see that. Now 8, I don't know. I love the texture from last hour. Hey, let's go 10, baby.
I don't think 8 is a crazy reach. It's not going to be easy. I think 6 to 7 is very doable. But, again, that's the nature of college football. You got weird games. Sometimes the ball bounces your way, and maybe you do beat a Clemson. Maybe you do beat a Ole Miss or something along those lines if circumstances present themselves the right way. But this team, again, when you have a defense that's playing like Carolina's is, you're going to have a chance in most of these games.
So I guess the way I look at it is you got 3. You'll get Wofford. That gives you 4. You have Vanderbilt in Nashville, and Vanderbilt looks better than we thought they were, but they're Vanderbilt. And then you have the 3 games we've been talking about, Missouri, A&M, and Oklahoma, that all of a sudden feel like more winnable than when the season started.
Yep.
So if you would find a way to navigate through all those, you got 8. And there you go. Then you would have the 3. You would have Clemson, Alabama, Ole Miss, which, again, there's a gateway to win all those games, especially if you have a defense that's bringing it like South Carolina has. So you do feel better where you're at going forward in this season after 4 games than a lot of people thought coming into the year.
Definitely.
Appreciate the texting, like always, 803-404-6100. Another chance to win some tickets to USC Ole Miss during the postgame show with Jay and Elijah after 3. Coming up, what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head. Another hour here on the game. What's trending at 2 here on the Halftime Show? Terry Ford Tyler Head, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Very interesting, and obviously what's been trending here has been South Carolina improving to 3-1 on Saturday, now in a bye week. And then the gauntlet starts of Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Alabama, Texas A&M. And as the bye week kicks in for South Carolina, if we look ahead real fast, this coming up week, Ole Miss, they get Kentucky, but that game's in Oxford.
Mm-hmm.
All their big games are in Oxford.
Weird how that happens,
That's
right?
bizarre.
Get Georgia there this year.
Yep. Oklahoma goes to Auburn. Oklahoma with a new starting quarterback. Auburn with no starting quarterback. Texas A&M.
Maybe Jackson Arnold can go and play for Auburn this weekend.
Hugh Freeze would be good for Jackson Arnold's psyche.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think so.
That's what you need with a young quarterback who's struggling with his confidence. Yeah, you need Hugh Freeze. Texas A&M will host Arkansas. A&M also has quarterback stuff going on. And Bama will, in the game of the day, will host Georgia, which will tell us, look, it's not going to tell us everything. No one, you're not going to learn anything about anybody for finality at this point.
Right.
But it'll tell you, rolling out of September, where Bama and Georgia are at and where they need to get. So we'll see. I mean, Georgia, it's so funny because Georgia, with the struggles they had against Kentucky on offense, and they had a couple injury problems as well on the offensive line, all of a sudden everybody's like this, ooh, Georgia. Everyone's going to have that week during a season.
Sure.
It's a long year. Everybody's going to have the week you have to go like this, woo, escape that one, baby. Bama had that against South Florida. It's just a score. If you just looked at the score, you wouldn't realize the struggle the Tide had with the Bulls.
Right. No, it's also significant. This is Kalen DeBoer's first SEC game.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting the big dog in Georgia coming to your house. Are you going to be the same Alabama that you've been for all these years under Nick Saban? Or are you a team that gets beat by a couple scores? Like, we're going to learn a lot about Alabama and Kalen DeBoer as a coach this weekend, I feel like.
Yeah, that guy that had the voodoo on Kirby's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and you know, what was that worth? You know what I mean? Is it just that Kirby can't get over the Alabama hump, or was it truly just Nick Saban?
We'll find out. Well, at least we'll get part of the answer on Saturday. So all of South Carolina's upcoming opponents are playing this week while South Carolina has their bye.
Yep.
So we'll keep an eyeball on what happens with Ole Miss, you know, in the Grove against Kentucky, Oklahoma on the road versus Auburn with a new quarterback starting A&M at home, facing an Arkansas team that's 3-1. Uncle Sam, go get them, baby.
Feeling good.
And then Bama, of course, hosting Georgia. Interesting story. This is just, I don't know. Remember we talked about Dan Campbell having to move. He put his house up for sale because now everybody in the world knows his home address. Well, get this. You know who did it? A friend of his daughter.
Oh, no.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Detroit News reported we know the report on Monday, but according to a report, the Lions, their security officials contacted Bloomfield Township Police, that's the suburb outside of Detroit, where Campbell has home, found out the report that his address had been posted online. NFL security revealed that a male high school classmate of Campbell's daughter posted the family's home address on Snapchat with the accompanying text of, here's the text, dumb bleeper trying to go for it.
Oh.
So basically Campbell went for it, I guess, on fourth down. They didn't make it. So a friend of his daughter went on Snapchat, put that text in, and then dropped the address on social media.
Yikes.
The Campbells eventually instructed their daughter to leave the home with her boyfriend. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. This is interesting. All right. So the Campbells are out of town at the time of all this. but became nervous for the safety of their daughter after vehicles and people showed up outside the residence. The Campbell's daughter was at the Bloomfield Township residence that night with her boyfriend, who went outside in his vehicle and flashed his headlights at anyone approaching, causing people to turn off theirs and leave. The Campbells eventually instructed their daughter to leave the home with her boyfriend, and the report stated that the police patrolled the residence for the next several days. Again, because some idiot who knew the address because he was buddies with the daughter, didn't like Dan Campbell going for it on fourth down because they obviously didn't make it. Thought it was a good idea to put the home address out on Snapchat.
I think Dan Campbell should get 5 minutes in a room alone with this guy.
Shut the door. Pull the shades down.
Put on some earmuffs.
Mm-hmm.
And just let Dan do whatever Dan feels like he should do.
That's better than any punishment I think the police could give the young lad.
I agree.
And sometimes in life you need a lesson that comes with pain.
That's right. I think Dan could provide that.
Because sometimes the best lessons are this. Wow, I don't want to do that again because the last time I did it, I got pain.
And I got my kneecap spit off.
Yes. Wow. All right. Gardner Minshew will remain the starting quarterback for the Raiders. They will be at home against the Cleveland Browns this coming up weekend. Of course, Vegas got pummeled by the Carolina Panthers on Sunday. Gardner Minshew, the whole Raider team struggled, and Minshew got benched for Aiden O'Connell for a bit in this football game. Antonio Pierce even talked about his guys making business decisions during the game, which Devontae Adams said, I really don't know where you're coming from, bro. So there's some stuff going on now in Vegas.
This is the bad side of hiring the coach or keeping the coach that all the players clamored for, right? Because he was the interim guy, and everyone's like, hey, we love him. They won some games. Like, let's keep this guy around. And so they decided to keep him around. But things start going the other way. Sometimes that guy isn't necessarily made to help, see through the not so great parts of an NFL team.
But look, Antonio Pierce, a former player, very intense dude when he played. And so if you see guys, quote unquote, making business decisions, that bothers you as a really intense dude. But again, we go back to Hugh Freeze. Were there guys on your team you think were making business decisions, which means, for an example, a wide receiver going across the middle and he hears footsteps and pulls his hands back because you're getting your tail kicked?
Yeah.
Like, dude, I'm not getting decapitated and we're losing by 4 scores or whatever. If you think there are guys doing it, I got a great idea. Instead of standing in front of the media talking about it, why don't you call those guys in your office again? You're a pretty big cat yourself. Shut the door and have a conversation about business decisions. Not saying that didn't happen. Like, we'll go back to your point. Antonio Pierce might be telling the truth. But sometimes when you're right, you're wrong.
Right.
So bring those guys in your office, shut the door, pull down the shades, turn up the stereo, whatever you want to do to handle your business. But going in front of the media like that, probably not a great way to handle it.
Right.
But Gardner Minshew will start again. But again, you go back to the Raiders. Did you really think that a Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell quarterback room was going to help you win a lot of games?
It shouldn't.
I know that we have Sam Darnold now with a reclamation project and Baker Mayfield and Geno Smith. So we think maybe everybody can be reclamated in some way, shape, or form. Uncle Rico is who Uncle Rico is at this point.
Right.
God love him. Uncle Rico sometimes can throw you into games, and Uncle Rico can throw you out of games.
Yeah.
And Aiden O'Connell kind of showed you he's not your answer.
Gardner Minshew is a perfectly serviceable backup, somebody that can come in, have a few good games, but he eventually, has the bad games. And he's not somebody that you should be building your entire offense around.
Or the other part of this is he's the guy, if you draft, for an example, if you're drafting Caleb Williams, but you don't want to start him right away, you'd like to have a veteran basically take the pummel, take the pounding, and maybe be a mentor to show Caleb Williams the business before he hands the keys off at some point in year one.
Yep.
That's a Gardner Minshew. Not let's start him with Aiden O'Connell as the backup.
Yeah, no good second option there.
Again, What are you expecting? What are you expecting going into a season? It's like Hugh Freeze again at Auburn. What are you expecting with this? So, Gardner Minshew will be the starting quarterback for the Raiders coming up this weekend. Here's one for you. Here's a headline. Jerry Jones thinks it's very fair to blame him for the Cowboys' 1-2 start.
Well, I think a lot of people are.
Well, they did a poll on WFAA-TV in Dallas asking who's to blame, and 70%, more than 70% of the voters said Jerry Jones. Of course, Jerry Jones wants to blame Jimmy Johnson. Now, anyway. Jerry Jones said that's fair. It's well known that no decision is ultimately made here for what I either have, I approve. Basically, everything goes through me. That's your problem, Jerry. Everything goes through you, bub. That's the problem.
You're a very meddling owner.
Yes. You have not been to an NFC championship game since the mid-'90s.
How many coaches have they been through?
144.
How many quarterbacks have they been through?
17,212.
What's the common denominator here?
Well, Jerry Jones.
So there you go.
It just... And you watch this team, we talked about it a little bit last hour, but look, the Cowboys are the ultimate front runner. If they get on you early, they bully you, they step on you, they dance, they laugh, and they score a bunch of points. If you punch them in the face early, they roll up in the corner, soil themselves, and cry like babies.
Yes.
They're soft.
And then they're arguing and fighting on the sidelines while down 20-some-odd points. Now, hey, they almost manufactured the comeback of the Ravens let them back in the game in the fourth quarter, but still, you can't deny, much like that, playoff game they had last year against Green Bay, they just completely looked lost in the first 3 quarters of that game.
Because, again, when you hit them early, they're soft. They don't fight back. They're that bully that keeps bullying you for your lunch money. The minute you kick him, he leaves you alone. And then I saw at least one player was talking about that they didn't feel like they were prepared going into the game by the coaching staff. One thing I've noticed about the Cowboys with their players, it's never the players. There's a sense of entitlement in Dallas with these players and this culture that's cultivated by Jerry Jones to where it's never the players. I mean, I've talked to people who have covered this team and have lived in Dallas. Mm-hmm. You want to talk about it's tough. If you're a player and you play for the Dallas Cowboys, it's very difficult to maneuver with all the lips on your butt.
Yeah.
And these guys have a sense of entitlement that is like crazy. Nothing's ever their fault. Ever. And look, they've been pretty successful here the last couple of years and have underachieved awful as soon as the lights got turned on the brightest, right?
Right.
And now, I mean, are they still a playoff team in theory? I mean, sure, it's not like the NFC is so daunting, right? But again, this is who the Cowboys always are. And they always will be as long as one dude has got his little meddling fingers in everything.
Well, and, his entire family is making up the front office of the Cowboys, so it just continues to trickle down.
Yeah. So Jerry says, yeah, you can blame me. By the way, how many other owners go on radio shows every week besides Jerry Jones? You want me to count them for you real quick?
That'd be 0. Yeah. How many other owners show up with a whistle and gym shorts to practice? And also be probably none.
Yeah.
Because they know their role.
There's a reason why other owners don't do this.
Yes.
Especially the successful ones with the teams that win championships.
Exactly.
There's a reason. What's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. More South Carolina football talk as we sit rolling into the bye week, coming off a 50-7 throttling of Akron. So we will kind of put our feet up and look at the South Carolina Gamecocks. 3-1 at the quarter pole?
Yes.
Yep, of the 2024 season. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head, till 3 on the game. Men's Clinic of South Carolina, Dr. Dan and the crew, they are here basically to get you feeling like you again, because that's what they do. You could be, whether it's just you're not strong like you used to be at the gym, whether it's you don't recover like you used to, whether you have a lack of life drive, a lack of sex drive, personal, whatever your lack of drive is. Maybe you're just not sleeping like as well as you did back in the day. Maybe you can't remember stuff and you used to remember everything. It could just be low testosterone. There's one way to find out. Put your mind at ease. Call the Men's Clinic of South Carolina, 803-875-MENS. Set up a free confidential consultation. Go and tell them your story. They'll actually listen. They think it could be low T. They'll do some lab work. If it is low testosterone, they will put you on a program specifically designed for you to make you feel like you again. 803-875-MENS. Make that call. Men's Clinic of South Carolina. Get back to being you. What's Trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Terry Ford, Tyler Head here on the halftime show. We run till 3. Then Jay and Elijah will take over with the postgame show here on the game. All right, we're sitting now at 3-1 for South Carolina. We've kind of talked about the opponents coming up, the way the schedule is playing itself out. It feels like this football team is in a better spot than most folks thought they would be at this point of the season. You're halfway to 6. I know that's not the way you should look at things, but Getting back to a bowl game to me is a huge step in the right direction for 2024.
That to me is priority number one. Whatever you pass that, 7 wins, 8 wins, 9 wins, 10 wins, that's all gravy. But getting back to a bowl game, proving you've taken a step back in the right direction after taking a step back last year is paramount here. And again, nobody thought Beamer was coming into the season on the hot seat or anything like that. But if you went through another year and went 5-7 or 4-8 and missed a bowl game, people start asking questions like, is this program really going in the right direction? Are we where we need to be, or does a change need to be made? Again, you're on track right now to put those things to bed, not have to worry about that. Just got to find at least 3 more wins.
And I think you laid that out very well. Because if you don't go to a bowl game, 2025, you are on a hot seat.
Yes, definitely.
And I think this year so far, what we've seen, I think you got to be happy with if you're a Gamecock fan. Let's go back to Monday, Tyler, really quick. I want to grab this cut. Shane Beamer cut 22. Objective in the bye week to improve the passing game. Again, the offensive line, there's pass protection issues with the tackles. You feel like you're watching the wide receivers get better, but still, how much of that was you're playing Akron? And your quarterback, Robbie Ashford, highest rated quarterback for Pro Football Focus last week. But again, Robbie Ashford, there's not a quarterback. In my mind, there's not a quarterback controversy on this football team. It's Lenore Sellers' gig. You feel better now that you saw Robbie Ashford play the way he did. Again, I understand it's Akron. But to me, and I've had people whisper the rumble of, hey, you think Robbie Ashford should be the quarterback? No, Lenore Sellers is the quarterback of the football team. But Robbie Ashford showed you he can come in and do some things that makes you hopeful that if you have to use him moving forward in some period of time, then he can step in and hopefully be somewhat as productive as he was against Akron, even though the competition will be better.
Right.
Shane, talking about the bye week, his objective in the bye week about improving the passing game. Here's Coach Beamer.
Great question. Continuing to just work on the fundamentals at that position. I mean, I've worked on the practice schedules for next week already a few days ago before this week ended, just kind of planning what we're going to be doing in the off week. And certainly we're going to, give our guys some time off at the end of the week, but we're going to practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And those practices are going to be not resting up, but getting better. And particularly in the passing game, we've got to continue to be able to, run the ball anytime you can line up and run it for 53 times for 273 yards, you're probably going to be successful. So we've got to continue to get better at that. There's no question about it. But as that passing game comes along, it'll really, really, really help us, obviously. So from our standpoint, it's just continuing. I think Mike's doing a great job with those receivers and getting them better and just working with them from a fundamental basis and technique. And then we've got to do in practice, giving them plenty of opportunities to throw and catch, and we'll get a little bit of Ole Miss work this week in practice, but it'll be a lot of, South Carolina work, getting ourselves better for sure.
That's what a bye week is. You work on you. You work on you in a bye week, and you can continue to improve your receiver room, and if you can, ramp up your protection, especially with the tackles, and you hope that once Lenore Sellers comes back healthy, then now you can get some consistency in your passing game and make it better. And it has gotten better as the weeks have gone along, to be fair.
Yeah, the bye week is time for development because, a normal game week, all right, you're moving on from whatever game you played the past weekend, get your day off. You start game planning and working on whatever that next opponent is, watching film and kind of preparing for whatever they're going to bring to the table. And I think they're practicing yesterday, today, and tomorrow before taking a few days off where, again, you don't have an opponent this weekend. Mm-hmm. You can focus, okay, here's where we're struggling, tackles, tackling on the defensive side of the ball. Let's focus on these things, get these things better. And then next week, obviously, you jump into planning for Ole Miss.
All right, so other news in the world of college football. I tell you, I don't know why that's happening. I tell you, realignment just never stops.
Won't die. It won't die.
I said this. I think I said this this morning. It's a gift that keeps on giving in the content business.
That's right.
Utah State has accepted the invitation to join the Pac-12. Now, Utah State, I forget, like an hour and a half from Salt Lake City, roughly, Logan, Utah.
Sure.
So it's not like, Utah is, okay, you get Salt Lake City if you have Utah. Utah State, you're not really getting Salt Lake City. but you're getting somewhere near the vicinity of Salt Lake City.
You got the third most popular team in the state of Utah.
Yes. Out of three,
Out of
by
three.
the way.
Out of
yes. You got number 3. And look, UNLV will probably end up in the Pac-12. Now, that's a real legit town, Vegas. You got a legit top 40, top 50 market.
But
they don't care.
I was going to say, it's like the Rutgers, New York thing.
they
Like,
care.
yeah, you're technically in the footprint of New York, but how many people in New York City are watching Rutgers athletics in general on a consistent basis?
Here's the truth. UNLV only mattered in Vegas in basketball.
That's true.
They don't really matter in basketball like they used to. In Vegas, become a pro town. You got 2 pro teams. You're going to have 3, most likely. It's a pro town. But you can, for TV purposes, say, hey, we're in a top 50 market in Vegas. I think UNLV will end up jumping. Also, the Pac-12 went after Memphis, Tulane, South Florida, UT San Antonio. All of these are big. Again, Memphis, that's legit. They actually do pay attention. They pay attention more to Memphis basketball, but Memphis football has been solid over the years.
Yes.
And Memphis is a top 50 market. Tulane is in New Orleans. Now, do they really go crazy over Tulane football? Not really, but I mean, they've been good lately, to be fair. But Tulane, New Orleans is a top 50-ish market. Obviously, South Florida is a big market. And San Antonio is a big market, like a top 40 market. So you're going after big markets in the American, and they all said, so how much money are you guaranteeing us? Exactly.
Yeah.
Pac-12's like, they got all these big fancy plans, right?
They have ideas and numbers, but nothing is concrete at this point in time.
What that reminds me of, don't we all have that buddy?
Yeah.
Oh, I got a great plan. Oh, I got a great idea. Oh, do I have a model, a business model? Oh, we all get together and put our money in? We'll all be rich.
And that's the issue here, is that the Pac-12 is trying to sell them on something that they can't understand the true value of, because you don't know what you're selling to these TV providers, because you don't know how many teams are going to be in your conference. It's all hypothetical at this point in time. And those 4 teams in the AAC said, we're making $9 million here. We're good for right now.
It's like that. They're the Amway of college football.
That's one way to put it.
We got a scheme. You know how much money you can make? But like, you bring some buddies.
On this, according to Brett McMurphy of the Action Network, Pac-12 has filed a lawsuit against the Mountain West, claiming its 5 new schools should not be required to pay the over $50 million poaching fee that the Mountain West Conference has levied against them. This is different than the $17 million exit fee the school must also pay. So now we're getting legal with it, which, by the way, this is just going to end up being looked at like the Mountain West anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that's all this is.
I always said, why not just merge?
Well, because they don't want New Mexico. That's why. There's certain schools they don't want. And that's the problem. They don't want the whole Mountain West. They just want the schools they want out of the Mountain West. That's all. But it's really just the Mountain West with Oregon State and Washington State is what you're ending up with right now.
Yeah, because, I mean, nobody's going to look at this conference with UNLV and Boise and Colorado State and say, well, that's right up there with the SEC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the ACC. Like, no, this is another group of now 6, I guess, conference.
Nobody's going, ooh, this is a future power league, baby.
No, they're not waiting to let
Did
you
you
into
add
the new
Utah
playoff.
State?
Exactly. They're not waiting to let you in the playoff with these guys.
Boise State? Oh, they got Chris Peterson and Kellen Moore still?
No, it's a long time ago.
So there you go. What's Trending at 2 is sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. All right, Wednesday, we will have Carolina calls Lamont Paris, Derek Scott, starting at 6 p.m. That will be Wednesday night. Lamont Paris men's basketball started practicing. We'll hear from Lamont and Derek Scott hanging out with Lamont at Backstreets. Again, that is this Wednesday at 6 here on The Game. We'll come back. It's the greatest day in the history of the world, September 24th. We'll talk about that on the halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head on The Game. Greatest day in the history of the world on the halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. It is September the 24th. On this day, Tyler, we got a good one. 1930. The Portsmouth Spartans beat the Brooklyn Dodgers, not the baseball team, 12-0 in the first NFL game played under the floodlights. More than 6,000 fans turned out in Portsmouth on an unseasonably warm evening to watch the game at the new University Stadium. Now, the Portsmouth Spartans were located in Portsmouth, Ohio.
Okay.
They were an NFL team.
Okay.
At the time, they were the second smallest city in the NFL. Guess who the smallest one is?
Green Bay.
Yep.
By the way, did the Dodgers not have an original name thought up?
No, not really.
There's like, oh, let's use the baseball team.
Yeah, everything in Brooklyn was, let's go. Ready? You know the Portsmouth Spartans are. Today. They were in the NFL till 1933. Then they relocated to another city.
In Ohio?
Nope.
No? I got nothing.
Detroit Lions.
Oh, how about that?
How about that? There you go. There you go. That's a good one for our old greatest day in the history of the world. All right, also greatest day in the history of the world on this day, 1967. Jim Bakken of the St. Louis Cardinals kicked 7 field goals. Cardinals won 28-14. That was an NFL record at the time. 1974, Al Kaline doubles down the right field line off Dave McNally. Kaline's 3,000th career hit. Kaline was from Baltimore, so kind of cool for him to be able to get that hit off of the Baltimore Orioles. 3,000 career hits for Al Kaline, Hall of Famer, one of the greatest players in Tiger history. Also, greatest day in the history of the world, 1988, American heptathlete Jackie Joyner-Kersee sets a new world record, almost 7,300 points to win the gold medal at the Seoul Olympics. Jackie Joyner-Kersee, one of the great Olympic athletes of our time, obviously. Heck of an Olympic swimmer. Matt Biondi in 1988 set the world record for the 50 meters, winning the gold in Seoul as well. He won 5 medals in the games. Also 1988, Seoul Olympics. Canadian sprinter Ben Johnson breaks his own 100-meter world record with a time of 9.79. 3 days later, he's disqualified for using Stanzanol. Carl Lewis was awarded the gold medal and the world record at 9.92. 1993, Juniata, I believe that's Juniata College in Pennsylvania. Juniata's women's volleyball team beats Washington of St. Louis to end Washington's NCAA record 59 straight match win streak. Another win streak went in the dumper on this day in 1994. Washington Huskies, they end Miami's NCAA record home winning streak at 58 games. 38-20, UW beat Miami in the Orange Bowl. We forget how good Miami was in the 90s and even in the 80s and the new millennium. Miami was good for a long time, man. They're a really good football program for a long time. They might be back this year, we'll see, but they had some historic teams. 2001, Green Bay shuts out Washington 37-0. That snapped Washington's record for not being shut out. In road games, 231 consecutive road games Washington had scored until that game. On this day in 2006, Washington's Mark Brunell breaks the NFL record for most consecutive passes completed in a game. He hit his first 22 throws in a win over the Texans. That record now is held by Ryan Tannehill, 25 consecutive. That was over 2 games. But yes, Ryan Tannehill owns the record for most consecutive completions. Couple more before we pop. Oh, really one more. On this day in 2017, Jake Elliott, rookie kicker for the Philadelphia Eagles, bangs a 61-yard field goal as time expires. Eagles beat the Giants 27-24, longest field goal by a rookie in NFL history. I believe that's the year the Eagles won the Super Bowl. I think, if my memory serves me. But that is the greatest day in the history of the world. I won't lie to you. I never knew that the Portsmouth Spartans became the Detroit Lions until today. See, it's educational. It's educational, it is. All right, halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. Going till 3, then Jay and Elijah with the postgame show. Your chance to win tickets to go see South Carolina and Ole Miss coming up between 3 and 6 on the postgame show with Jay and Elijah. And speaking of the postgame show, this show, the halftime show, and the postgame show, both will be on the road Friday. Going to go pop into the Ultimate Long Drive World Championships at Partee Golf. That's Charleston Highway in West Columbia. Again, we'll be there from noon to 6 doing both shows, broadcasting live, giving you the vibe of the Ultimate Long Drive World Championship. Is that again at Partee Golf? All right, so South Carolina with a bye week, and they'll start to ramp up for Ole Miss. But they'll be working on their own stuff. Shane Beamer, we heard the cut, what they're going to be working on during the bye week. And really, you get to self-scout, self-examine yourself, work on you. What do you have to do better? And as we look at this team, and we brought it up earlier, the number one thing has to get better is consistent offensive line play. Rashawn Lee has been the best offensive lineman on the team consistently through the season. Torricelli Simpkins has been really good in pass protection, but has struggled in run blocking. Kamar Bell has been inconsistent. He's had some good weeks and some bad weeks. Josiah Thompson is what we thought he would be, a freshman starting at left tackle in the SEC. You're 18, and you're out there at left tackle dealing with some of the best edge players in the country and future NFL edge players. Kason Henry has really struggled. Was good in pass protection last Saturday against Liberty, but had a tough time in run blocking. So the offensive line has just got to get better, more consistent. Is it better than it was last year? Well, it better be. But it still has, to take another step up or two. So that's really the number one thing you want to see improve as the bye week goes through. And how much can you do in a bye week to make your offensive line better? It's just reps and practice and development. That's all you can do. I mean, you have some guys in the background. Trevon Ball played well against Liberty. Tree Babalati has been hurt. Marquis Anderson has been hurt, but got on the field a decent amount against Liberty. So you might have some reinforcements if you need them. But the offensive line has got to step up and get more consistent. I mean, to me, that's the number one thing out of the first bye week of the year that has to improve.
Definitely. No, that's, again, going up against some of the pass rushes you're going to see in the month of October. If you don't correct some of these offensive line issues, it could be a very long day back there for Lenore Sellers, on top of the fact he's already been injured a couple times this year. You don't want to compound that.
All right. You want to see Bare Naked Ladies? You like Bare Naked Ladies?
Sure.
I mean the band. Not do you like Bare Naked Ladies?
Well,
I mean, do you like Bare Naked Ladies, the band?
Yes.
Okay. Because the answer to the first is obviously yeah. Well, we have tickets. Just found out.
Okay.
Jeannie, our promotions goddess, came in here and said I got a couple tickets for Bare Naked Ladies in October, mid-October.
All right, then.
I say we give them away.
Let's do it.
2 pair. Bare Naked Ladies. They're solid. Like late 90s, early new millennium.
Hey, we all love 1 week.
Yeah. I mean, they had it going on. I mean, they're a Canadian band. Not that matters, but
Got against Canadian bands.
nothing. I like me a Canadian band.
A lot of good Canadian
Love
bands.
Alanis Morissette. She's not a band, but she's from Canada.
About Nickelback.
I like Alanis Morissette a lot.
You're avoiding the Nickelback question.
Alanis Morissette's fantastic. Isn't Justin Bieber Canadian?
He's also Canadian.
There you go.
Dave a Dead Man.
I'll give you old school Triumph.
Okay.
Wasn't Rush Canadian?
I was going to say Rush is Canadian.
There you go. A lot of good bands.
A lot of good options.
Got no hate for Canada and their Canadian bands. All right, let's do it right now. Let's give away to callers 3 and 4. Each gets a pair of tickets to go see Bare Naked Ladies in mid-October. It's already firing up the phone. See? Bare Naked Ladies, they had a nice cult following, and they probably still do. All right, so hit us up with that. All right, we will come back. Our Firehouse sub text the hour, 803-404-6100, and we'll yip with Jay or Elijah. Maybe both, maybe none, maybe one. It's our handoff sponsored by Little Pigs. That is coming up on the halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head on the game. right, we'll get our Firehouse sub text here. I got it right here. Ready?
Okay.
Unnamed texter at 803-404-6100. How can you be late to work when you live 5 minutes away?
That is a great question. Jay Phillips, care to answer?
Thank you, texter.
When they are repaving Gervais Street in my neighborhood, and I have to go around the neighborhood and hit Forest Drive / Taylor Street.
There is one road he needs to get here, just one.
I'm gonna tell you, so Elijah comes in here a few minutes ago and he says, Jay just hit me up. Yeah. He's not gonna be able to do the handoff sponsored by Little Pigs on Alpine. Because I said, why? What's up? He said, all right. He goes, yeah, he's stuck in traffic. I go, I can spit and hit Jay Phillips' house from here. How can you be? Just get out of your car and walk and you can make it.
I typically would do that.
Jay, I feel like you have enough rapport around here where you can just stick your head out the window, say, I'm Jay Phillips, and they will cease operation to let you through.
I think the very helpful attendant at the end of the traffic or the repaving area very politely asked me if I had another way I could go, to which I said, yes, I do. And so I did.
Or this one. Well, it depends, Tyler, to be fair. Elijah wasn't here for this. I don't know if you were or not. If that attendant was the guy that was fighting with Jay about on social media if the Allman Brothers were a jam band, if Jay would have said to that guy.
I do remember this.
And that would have been the guy.
This was not that guy.
Yeah.
They would have fought.
Oh,
Then Jay would be very late because he had gotten out his car to throw hands with a
Jay would have
stranger.
been arrested. We would have had to go bail him out of jail, and there would be no postgame show
and of course, obviously, it would no. I'll tell you, Mrs. J would have to go because we're in radio. We can't afford to bail him out.
We'll just do the show live from Alvin Glen. That's
There's really nothing to fight about.
That's what we can
though.
do.
That's just it. It's not. I don't know. Again,
I'm sure they're very open to remote broadcast inside of jail cells.
Sure,
there.
I think
sure
so.
they are.
I don't know. Could we get the Comrex cooking with those walls?
But there's
It might be tough. I don't know if they have the wired internet access
there's nothing
there.
to fight about.
Because you were
video
right.
streaming.
Because you were right.
I got no problems here.
Well, we got Firehouse Sub text the hour 803-404-6100.
Nothing's going to top that. But Nameless Texter says, do you guys think it's weird Texas is only playing outside of the state twice on their SEC schedule? They have games at Arkansas and at Vanderbilt. They got a super light draw this year.
Oh, they is it the lightest SEC schedule? If not, it's one of the 2 or 3 lightest
they get
SEC
Georgia,
schedules.
but it is at home.
But that game's in Austin, exactly.
And they do have to go to A&M, though, still within the
One's
state.
a neutral site game, so how do we count that? I mean, that's that's like saying that when Georgia has to go to Jacksonville, they don't feel at home.
It's half and half.
Well, let's face it. Let's be real here. Oklahoma and Texas come into the league together. Who got pummeled with a schedule and who didn't? Oklahoma's schedule is a bear.
They both. I don't know. Look,
I think Texas' schedule is pretty easy for the SEC.
Texas next year. I mean, they'll
just reverse it?
They'll always have 4 quote home games. Now I don't know how I guess Tyler, help me out. The Georgia-Florida, like they just rotate the wink home game, right? Who wears red or
jersey
blue?
colors, yes.
So and Texas will always play in Texas against A&M, and then they'll have either 3 or 4. So I mean,
But that's really not much different than what they were doing in the Big 12. Baylor, Texas Tech, TCU, like they played a lot of games.
Okay,
in the
let's
state
be
then,
honest
too.
here. All right,
Texas
let's
is a pretty big state.
I mean, Florida plays in most years. Florida's going to play what? I mean, there's times when they play 5 conference games in the state of Florida.
Yeah. And well, Florida right now, let's just face it, they should be in the Sun Belt. All right, here's what Texas has moving forward for the rest of it. They got Mississippi State at home.
Win.
Oklahoma State Fair game. That looks like a win.
We'll see.
Oklahoma doesn't know who their starting quarterback is. They get Georgia in Austin. They travel to Nashville to face a better than we thought Vandy team, but still.
Better than we thought.
Then they get Florida in Austin. They travel to Fayetteville to get 3-1 Arkansas. Then Kentucky shows up.
Arkansas.
Yep, should be 4-0. God, that was crazy. Then you have Kentucky showing up in Austin, and then you have to go to College Station. To me, the Georgia game, and then having to go to A&M because their vile hate for you, that cult is going to be fired up.
I've already picked A&M for that game.
I think A&M wins that game.
2 months
I can see A&M winning that game.
I could see it. I don't pick it. I think Texas loses to Georgia, and they might lose to Oklahoma if Oklahoma's defense.
Yeah, but see, in
show
today's
up
college football, man, you got to score points. Look, Oklahoma's defense did a heck of a job against Tennessee besides a couple
About
of
as good
explosives.
as anybody can do against
I mean,
that
you hold
offense.
Tennessee to 25. and Nico threw for under 200 yards.
Yeah, that's what's
Made him settle for a ton of
Here's the
field goals.
problem. Oklahoma, they can't score.
No.
They got no quarterback. Well, their offensive line's so bad, doesn't matter who the quarterback is. to be
And
quite honest.
there may lie your biggest issue. Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, I get what the texter is getting.
I think compared to other SEC schools, this is pretty easy.
Yeah, but again, Florida. There again, every other year, Florida technically plays. Not technically, does play 5 conference games in the state of Florida.
I just feel like right now, the way we look at Florida, they could play all their games in the state of Florida, and they'd still lose 7.
I still, until proven otherwise, I'm still going to say what I've been saying about Oklahoma and Texas. Texas is really good right now. It doesn't typically last. Oklahoma is finding its way again. They'll be on top soon enough.
Oklahoma will be fine.
Yes, and Texas will be back to winning 8 games. That's what happens.
All right, what do you guys got coming up? Quickly.
Ryan Brewer.
Oh,
It's
that's
Brews
right.
Day.
It's time for Brew Day.
Brews Day. Yep.
Post-game show coming up. Nice work, Tyler. We'll do this again tomorrow.